Lakeland Connection train routes. That can be complicated. Lots of trains come through in a day. But most of the trains happen at 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., as most would know. But I will tell you every train route that comes through here and how to identify it. Keep in mind, I haven't seen every train route that comes through here, but I do know what comes through here. And I know how to tell you what they are and how to identify it. So the ones that I haven't seen, sorry, you're going to have to figure that one out yourself using a radio. But if you're new to Lakeland Connection and you're thinking about coming at about, 5 p.m. or 4 p.m., I got you. And you're going to stay till about 11 p.m., still got you. Let's get started. Let's start with the two Amtraks, Amtrak 41 and Amtrak PO 40, yet both of them come twice. For example, PO 41, the southbound, will go outbound of Lakeland first and then inbound on Lakeland when he's done. PO 40, for example, will come to Lakeland once at 12 and then will come again at 2 p.m. PO 40 is the northbound version and he will come slightly later than PO 41. He will come around the time when the freight trains are popping out. After you see this Amtrak train, freight trains are imminent, because Amtrak is out of the way and nothing else to be waited on. Now, how to identify between PO 41 and PO 40 is just simply the times they come, or simply the Amtrak app, or a radio. There's multiple ways to detect Amtrak. It's pretty easy to track them. Mainly, people use the Amtrak app, or www.amtrak.com. If you search in 41 or 40 on Lakeland, there will be two options for Lakeland. There will be LKL and then LAK. For PO 41, LAK will be first, and then he'll do LKL second. For PO 40, he will do LKL first and then LAK when he's done. LKL is the points towards south, and then LAK is the points towards north. So PO 40 is the northbound, and PO 41 is the southbound. Oh, and also that's another context clue on how you can find whether this train route is a southbound or a northbound. The southbounds always end in an odd number, and the northbounds always end in an even number. For example, IO44 is a northbound, it ends in 4. IO45, it's a southbound, it ends in 5. And if you don't know your odd and even numbers, you shouldn't be trying to study train routes in the first place. Amtrak is definitely the fastest train you will get there, as it is passenger, so it makes sense. The full train route is PO 41 and PO 40. P stands for passenger. The initial in front of every train route usually stands for something. As the CSX train routes I mentioned before in IO44 and IO45, I in the front stands for intermodal. Amtrak is also the most predictable trains you will get over here. For one, there is two advantages that you get. Amtrak tracking app, and they come at about the same time every day unless there's some kind of delay. If you guys decide to see this guy from Missouri Avenue to Florida Avenue, which is the line of crossings after the Lakeland Connection, Missouri Avenue is a pretty iconic spot for rail fanning in the Lakeland Connection area, so if you're going to view him here, he'll stop close to Florida Avenue, which is farther down, and the Lakeland station is literally seconds away from you on the train. You'll see him stopped if you look down the tracks. If you're at Floridian Avenue, you might literally be stopped next to him. Wabash is another good pick. Comes at pretty good speeds, and you get your own platform. The Amtrak will always come to the track farthest to you, and I'll explain that in a different. Definitely the most predictable train you will find here. Let's move on to the next. The next most predictable train that you will find here and comes daily is IO44, a northbound intermodal train. What makes him so predictable, I think in my opinion, is in Plant City, they can't come at the same time like they can here in Wabash, so they have to wait for each other. IO44 comes at the same schedule as PO40 does. PO40 usually comes in the evening like this train does. If you want a time hour for when you can usually see this guy at Lakeland Connection, I want to give you about a 2-hour window. I want to say about 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Sorry, a 3-hour window. But his average, 6 p.m., which means that's usually when he comes. If not, usually a bit earlier. Like 5:45, but it barely ever happens. Again, about 6 to 6:30. If you're going to watch him at People's Lane like I am here, which is right above Lakeland Connection, he always comes on track 2 according to Peachtree Street. If you're on the far left side like I am here, track 1. He always comes from the right. Remember that. He turns out of Wabash, which is farther to the right, and stays on track 2 according to where this POV is from. Statistically talking, all trains and not just IL-44, some trains in the later night can turn tracks like you see on this switch right here. Not everything that comes from the right can stay on the right. Everything that comes from the left has to stay on the left though. Just talking IL-44, he never changes track. He's always a solo leader, which means he only has one engine in his consist about 95% of the time. The only time when he would have 2 is if he's trying to have a storage move with another locomotive, which hasn't happened for a while. Overall, pretty iconic train. In a way, L793 can be one of the most predictable trains that you'll see here, because its time frame is in like an hour. And if you don't see it in that time frame, the chances are it's already been in the morning. Its time window is about 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And on average, it comes at about 7:30. And if it doesn't come at those times, it's probably already been at like 9 a.m. In a way, it's one of the most predictable trains you'll find here. And it stays on A-line going all the way down to Missouri Avenue. It doesn't turn into people's lane, just by the way. The consist is always 2 engines, no longer. He, on average, if he's L793, has about 50 to 80 cars. If he's X793 and comes at about 9 or 10 a.m., then he has about 160 to 200 cars. Yes, if he comes in the morning, he's not even L793 anymore. He's called X793. Takes the same route, it's just he's 12 hours earlier. How the X system works is extra, so it's a replica or a copy of the exact same route, but the normal route won't run if the X version of it is running that same day. Usually to get an X version of a route, you need a major time difference or a major route change. For it to be considered an X route due to time, it needs to be at least 10 hours earlier or later. And it needs to be on purpose as well. For it to be classified X due to route change, it might go from an A-line train to an S-line train. For example, M441 usually takes the S-line at Plant City. If he takes the A-line, he's considered X441. Another example, M453 usually follows along the Lakeland sub past Plant City, past Tampa. X453 usually comes off with the Vitus sub in Plant City, Florida. Enough talking about the X system. L793 can be one of the most predictable trains if you're right. If it doesn't come in those time hours, it most likely came as an X. The next most predictable is L/M604. It could be either one. This guy's pretty complicated. But there's a way to tell between whether he's L604 or M604. I've never personally seen M604. I've always seen L604. L604 always carries phosphate in grain hoppers like this. And M604, he just carries mixed freight, which means he's flexible. He has a mix of different cars. M stands for manifest, which means mixed freight. It's pretty self-explanatory. L stands for local, which I'm pretty sure I mentioned that earlier on. L604 stays on track 2 and comes from the right on track 2. M604 switches from track 2 to track 1, but comes from the right. The reason that it's not as predictable as L793 is because its time window is more extendable, and there's 2 different routes it could take. It will most likely be M604, which is in a time window of 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., which on average is 3 p.m. The unlikely chance is that it'll go on L604, which comes from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., which most likely won't happen. It'll most likely be M604. But if you're lucky, it'll be L604, depending on what time frames you want to go. I'm expecting you want to be at the later time frames, so expect L604. The next most unpredictable is its brother, M/L603. The southbound version. M/L603 usually comes later, and most of the time you'll see him on M603. Because L603 comes in the morning. M603 comes in the night. Obviously, I've never seen L603, but I've always seen M603, and here's a video of him. It's exactly the same ratio as L604 and M604. L603 carries phosphate, and M603 carries mixed freight. Now, there's going to be a part 2 to this because I can't make this a 1-hour video explaining every route like this. I'll try to make next part shorter if I can, but I guess this is going to be the end of part 1. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in part 2.